Just go to the next question. So this question is, uh, yeah, it comes from one of the major imbalances or misunderstanding in application. The question goes, so we hear of the futility of material happiness and the glory of spiritual happiness. While we understand the above truth, there is also a need for pleasures in life which may not be spiritual for the overall well being of the body and mind. We have seen sometimes that an improper understanding of this concept had caused a lot of confusion in the life of the devotee and the family around, leading to a lot of dissatisfaction and frustration. So, the question is, how can women in student life and in marital life lead a joyful life, spreading happiness around them without becoming entangled? Nataji, please tell us how we can apply this principle.
A very nice question again, very practical question. See, one thing we should understand that, in our life, in our human life, there is time for everything. There is time for dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. Now, if you see very carefully, there is dharma, artha, kama, moksha. In this sequence, it begins with dharma, and on this end there is moksha, and artha and kama are in the middle. So, and they are both in the they are in the boundary of dharma and moksha. So dharma is touching artha and moksha is touching kama. They are not isolated. So keeping this in mind, we should know that there is time for everything. Time for dharma, artha, kama, moksha. When we should emphasize on which aspect of life, it depends on our age, on which stage of life we are in, which phase of life we are in. All these factors matter a lot. So, so we have to understand that. Let me try to give some examples to make it very clear. Say, for example, let's take from Devahuti's life. Devahuti came from a royal family. She was brought up in great luxury and everything. She married Kardama Muni. She didn't mind living in a hermitage, and she lived also like an ascetic lady. She did all that, but when it was time for procreation, when she wanted to have a child, she knew that she cannot manage all that in a small hermitage. So she very openly demanded from her husband that now at this stage of life, where I'm going to be a mother and going to have a child, I need more luxuries. Because luxuries, actually, for her, it was her need. It was not luxury for her. What is luxury and what is not is a very relative perception, but for her it was very normal to have some basic things in place. So she was very clear enough in demanding those things, and she requested her husband that I need to have these things so that I can do my duty as a mother very nicely. And then her husband offered her all those things, a very beautiful celestial mansion. And in that part of the Grihastha ashram, they had like a honeymoon, a beautiful tour of the entire universe. Kardama Muni, what powers he had, his ascetic powers were great. He kind of took her on a tour of the entire universe, even to Swargaloka and other celestial planets. So, and that way he satisfied her in every aspect and provided all that she needed. So she knew that okay, till now I was alone, so I could manage living as an ascetic lady in a small hermitage, but now we are going to have a family, and for that these are my needs. So she was mature enough in asking. She was not shy. And Kardama Muni also, as a very wonderful husband, he also understood, yes, this is how her upbringing has been. These are her needs, and it should be provided. So he gave her all that. And we know how they had a very wonderful Grihastha ashram, very luxuriously spent. Later, Kapila Muni was born. So we understand this from Devahuti's life also, the section that you're studying currently. Similarly, what happens is in our movement, when people start becoming devotees, they kind of ignore the time factor. We can never play with the time factor. We have to allow time to take, to make us mature. It's like a journey. We have to go through this journey of life. Suddenly we come into association of devotees. We learn to chant and apply tilak. This doesn't mean that overnight things can change for us. It's called as a pure devotee syndrome. That doesn't work. So we have to understand that we have to act as per dharma, artha, kama, moksha, as per the needs of our life at that particular stage. Say, for example, there is a student who is doing his engineering or medical or whatever, CA, and they have to study so much at that time. And at that time, or say for a student who is preparing for competitive exams to get into his whatever line he's planning to, at that time, if a student keeps listening that, oh, death is coming, you're not this body, you're going to die any day, then how will that student feel motivated to study? He'll lose all motivation. He'll feel that, anyway, I'm going to die. Why to do all these things? I remember as a child, many of you may remember, there was this Nostradamus predictions. And this Nostradamus, that was very famous. And in school, we would keep discussing that, oh, the world is going to end, the world is going to end. And many people were completely, having this idea that the world is going to end. So people in school, my friends and all would think, why should we study if the world is going to end? So naturally that feeling came in many children's mind that why should we study and work so hard? And why should we do our homework when world is going to end? Let's just enjoy. So the same thing happens at as a student when he's preparing for his competitive exams, say for board exams, or after 12th his competitive exams, or some post-graduation. While acquiring knowledge, a student has to think, I'm going to live 100 years. And while chanting or performing our sadhana, one should think that I'm going to maybe live for a few seconds, so that intensity comes in our prayer. So we should not confuse with both these things, and be very clear what we should do. Similarly for girls, young girls. Let's speak about young girls since this program is for young girls. When the girls are right age for marriage, they should know that they should be aware, though we are devotees, we are chanting, we are doing all these things. We love Krishna. We want to be very, very Krishna conscious. We just want to do many services all the time. But we should be aware that what is my situation of life right now, which age I am in, what are my duties currently. So if we miss out on that, everything will be a big mess. Our material life will go for a toss, and neither can we do any spiritual life properly. And we'll be such a bad example for the society. Like, say for example, a girl is is in her marriageable age, is going to get married. And if she keeps thinking that, oh, this is all futile, Grahastha ashram is just like a deep, dark well, where am I going to fall? And see how women are spoken so badly about in scriptures. There are so many things like that, which says that women, anyways, not going into the details, like, less intelligent and can be an enemy to her husband if she's not dharmic, and so many things like that, which we often hear. So if a girl keeps thinking that I'm going to fall into an andhakupa and what is all this ignorant thing, then how will her married life be successful? It will not be successful at all if she starts on these grounds. I really find it very funny, but I must share it here. Before my marriage, I was hearing a series on hopes and horrors of Grahastha ashram. And there I think a series of some, I don't remember the number of lectures, but there were quite a few. And finally, one person asked that, please tell me in one line, what is the goal of Grihastha Ashram? And he was told, the goal of Grihastha Ashram is Vanaprastha. And I heard this just before my marriage. And that time my grandparents were with me. So I was also new, and with all these ideas in my mind, I told my grandmother, why I'm getting married? So that I can enter Vanaprastha. And she said, what? You gone mad or something? What are you talking? I said, yes, unless we enter Grihastha Ashram, we cannot go to Vanaprastha. That's why we get married. But then she said, but no, it's a long journey. There are so many things in between Grihastha Ashram and Vanaprastha. So many stations are going to come, and you have to experience all those things. So, of course, that time I thought that my granny knows little. But, as I embarked on the journey, all those ideas were washed away, and there was a lot of clarity arose from the confusing thoughts that I had. So, it's a long journey for a student life, for Grihastha life. So we cannot start our journey thinking that, oh, this is all Maya, what is this? I should only be doing my spiritual duties. Yeah, so Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha is there. So that, whenever we do Artha and Kama, that also is in the boundary of Dharma and Moksha. That is most important. So we have to keep that in mind. It is not that when we are doing Artha Kama, that means we have completely put Dharma aside. That doesn't happen. That's why I said it is in between Dharma and Moksha. I think I should stop with this.
Very, very amazing answer, Mataji. Really, it's very delightful. The way you spoke about how these two are Artha and Kama are within the boundaries of Dharma and Moksha, especially
just 1 minute.
Yes, Mataji.
Just 1 minute. Just once last, very shortly, I say one very striking example came to my mind. Since this is a girls' program, I thought it'll be really ideal to speak over here. I had a friend, she's still there, very nice devotee. But, 22, 25 years back, when she got married, both of them, very ideal, they had a very, very idealistic idea about how they will lead their Grihastha Ashram. So they decided we'll just, completely dedicate ourselves and live in Vrindavan. So they lived in Vrindavan. You won't believe she would wear unstarched cotton saris, often white in color. And both of them did many services staying in Vrindavan. They would serve visiting sannyasis and cook for devotees and so many things. So it looked really ideal, but it was not age appropriate. They had just got married. So it did not last even for few months. And after a few months, of course, Artha was needed. So Prabhuji had to look for a job. So he took a job. Then he took a job that was not enough in India. Then he had to take a job abroad. And they took a job abroad. And then they also have two children. And then everything became very normal. I'm very happy that things became very normal. So now they are very ideal couple, very normal, having two children. And they are completely normal now. Yes.
Amazing, Mataji. Really, this is such a crucial point that you said about the time factor, doing things that should be age appropriate. Really, it's a very, very crucial lesson, because oftentimes by the time we realize, so much of time passes and we cannot do much but regret, or probably just think of, okay, it happened in my life, but let me help others. So, but really, I'm sure this is going to help a lot of people, and especially the amazing two-liner that you spoke about. That when you're studying and making your career, plan for 100 years, and when you're chanting, think that you're living only this moment. This is amazing understanding and reconciliation. Thank you very much. And I mean, I just relish this input. Thank you so much.